Good morning to Dr. Yvonne Prempeh-Ferguson. I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for honoring my invitation to be my first speaker on the EPBWN one-on-one interview with Princess Nwakego Ibrahim-Pam. It's always been a privilege to have you, to work with you, to have you as a friend and as a colleague, and also as a mentor. Thank you for honoring my birthday invitation so that we can impact younger women and women of our age group who are looking up to us. So, Dr. Yvonne, I want to welcome you specially to this premiere version of the one-on-one with Princess Nwakego Ibrahim-Pam. The idea or the vision behind this interview is to interview women like you that have gone around the world with so much experience, vast knowledge through educational background, through family background, and more especially through career. So we want to listen to you today as you take us through your life from your family background to your inspiration. I'm looking forward to having a very wonderful time with you, Dr. Yvonne Prempeh-Ferguson. So you're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you very much, Princess and Mrs. Pam, as I affectionately call you. I feel very, very special, very honored to be part of this maiden edition of the one-on-one interviews. Let me use this opportunity to wish you a happy birthday first.
Thank you.
Actually, maybe this is a good place to even toast. Happy birthday to you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Pam. And very, very historic that we will have this discussion on your birthday. Happy 57th birthday.
Thank
you. Thank you very much for constantly inviting women, to share your space with you, women to share their inspiring stories, to share their inspiring journeys, and for being a role model, not just for the young people, but for all of us, including the adults. So I'm very, very excited and delighted to be here. And I'm very happy to be able to offer a few snapshots of my own life and my journey and my career so that it will help somebody who's also pursuing the same inspiration, who's also following the same journey. So I'm very, very delighted to be here this morning.
Thank you very much and welcome once again.
Me.
So we'll start with the first question or area of your story, which will be your family background.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, when people see you put together and seemingly, shattering the ceilings, they always think that it's been all rosy. But behind every successful story, there are a few challenges here and there. So it gives me great honor to speak about my family background and also to encourage other women who may have found myself in a similar family situation or similar upbringing to continue to inspire, to continue to do well. My greatest role model was my mom. My mom was an only child. Her parents were farmers. Her mother was an illiterate. But she said, I have only one daughter. So my mom is from a family of 2 children. She had only one brother on her mother's side. But on her father's side, she was the oldest of almost 43 children.
Wow.
Exactly. And it's very funny. These aunties, they name themselves. They say, I'm number 27, I'm number 28. If you confuse 28 with 29, they'll remind you, no, I'm 32. It's so beautiful to watch them. But my mom was the firstborn on her father's side. So she was thrown into this role of a firstborn and to do well. Her parents were farmers. They didn't have much to go. But my grandmother was a pioneer of her time. And she said, even though I didn't go to school, I want my daughter to be a didi wife, which means a midwife, And she used to say, I want Georgina to become a didi wife. And it used to be a constant joke in the family. And my grandmother to this day was convinced that her daughter was the best midwife in the whole nation. So my mom grew up with just one brother and a host of other siblings who looked up to her. And so at a very, very early age, she was forced to do well. And granted, she was lucky. She had a lot of exposure to, teachers and nurses and other trainers who believed in her. And those remained inspiration to her life, her entire journey and entire time she was alive. So she started as a midwife. She opened the first maternity home in Brahafo region, which is a very underserved area in Ghana. And right after completing her midwifery education, she was sent to a place in the north where I think she'll tell you they used to even do operations with candles and a very, very tough exposure to nursing. But that did not discourage her. She opened the first maternity home run by an independent woman in her locality, in her village. It's called St. George's Maternity Home because she's Georgiana. So we are, as a family, we call ourselves the St. George's siblings, just from maternity home. And it will interest you to know, I'm the only one who can deliver babies. All my 5 sisters, even though they were not nurses, are able to deliver babies because they were trained. So I come from a family of 8, and that's on my mother's side. On my father's side, my father's parents were also farmers, a bit of lineage here and there. But my father was a cocoa producer and worked for a cocoa buying company. And so we traveled a lot because he needed to travel from village to village, to procure cocoa from the farmers. And he was also a teacher. He was a pupil teacher from age 16. And I always tell people, if your parent is a teacher, you're in trouble. Or if your parent is a nurse, you're in trouble. So in our case, my mother was a nurse, my father was a teacher. So you can imagine growing up with a father who is a teacher and a mother who is a nurse. Our house was like a school. It was like a dormitory. It was like a convent,
I can relate with that.
I'm sure you can relate to that. And you know what my mother said recently? She said, how many of you died? None of you died from that training. That is the discipline that has kept you and has enabled you to do what you do. And so today I even say very proudly and dedicate this interview to these parents who taught us that it can be done. My mother will tell you, if there are 2 people, you're one of the 2. If there's one, that one has to be you. And that remained with us. And that has become the backbone and the foundation of continuing to strive for excellence, even in the most challenging situations. So my mom she said she was an only child, an only daughter, so she's going to have 10 children. And God answered her prayer. She had 10 children, but she lost 2. And we have 8 surviving family members. I have 5. I'm the 4th of 5 sisters, and I have 3 brothers. In terms of the line, I'm the 4th child. And you know how 4th children and middle children, how we suffer. You know what I'm saying? You are neither the firstborn and you are not the lastborn. So you have to do extra hard to be recognized,
Honestly.
Exactly. So I think all of that is, people look at me and they ask me, Yvonne, what drives you? And I think all of this experiences actually drives me because I always needed to outperform my older siblings or outperform the little ones because I'm a middle child and I need to get attention,
That's true.
Exactly. So that there was always, Yvonne there trying to fight for attention. Good enough that I took after my mother in terms of her comedy and her humor and also her interest in hard work. And that helped me. So the 5 girls, we're close. Everybody's done well for themselves, thanks to God. It did not come easy. There were days that we used to ask ourselves, is this woman really our mother? And I would ask that question, and she'll tell me, do you know I gave birth to you at home, so you are definitely my child. If I gave birth to you in the hospital, I would have said they mixed you up with another baby. So you are definitely my child, and I'm definitely your mother, And so growing up with 2 parents who strive for excellence, who insisted on, I don't even want to say perfectionism, but beyond perfectionism, they insisted on doing well. You know what my mother would say? That if you're selling pepper in the market, cover it with a lace. When they come to the market, there are 10 of you selling pepper. They will ask that woman whose pepper has lace covering, and they will come to you. So whatever you do, make sure you are the best at it, even if it's selling pepper.
Yeah.
And that has remained with me. We remember our parents with a lot of sayings and a lot of encouraging words that inspired us. So for me, my parents were my greatest role models and my greatest source of inspiration. And I believe in all 8 of us, there's an element of some of them in all of us. And when we meet, that is all we talk about, how blessed we have been to have been raised by these parents who didn't have a lot, but who were determined to turn us into the best products that we could get. So to start with just a little bit about the family, my big brother, who is 65 now, has retired, married with 2 children, is a grandfather of 2, a proud, doting grandfather of 2 naughty little boys that he loves very dearly. My sister, who is a lawyer, is also married to a lawyer, and she used to work for the Attorney General. She's a state prosecutor. The third one is the one that we lost. So I'm number 4. And Yvonne will describe herself as a development practitioner, a humanitarian specialist and advocate for women, and a sometimes crazy 61-year-old who is very committed to wellness and empowering young people.
And the fashionista.
And a fashionista who is constantly, learning from all those ahead of her. And I should say that my fashionista skills were sharpened in Nigeria. People ask me, how come I do all these galas? I said, hey, those were my 4 years in Nigeria that has positively influenced my style. So my sister after me, whom I talk about a lot, she's in politics and has been a minister a couple of times. Her party is no longer in power, so she's doing her private things now. And behind her, we have another sister who's a development practitioner, has a PhD in public health, and is a director for health services. Yeah, fantastic. So those are 5 of us. The last 3 decided to go to the UK. So after her, there's 1 girl and 2 boys. I believe, by that time, I think my mother was very tired. So they're very spoiled. They didn't go through the rough, tough discipline that we went through. And so they're enjoying their lives in the UK. But the interesting things, between the 3 of them, they've given my parents 10 grandchildren.
Oh,
so
wow.
My brother has 2, the next sister has 4, and the last one has 3, actually. So that's 11. So 11 grandchildren. But the rest of us, as my mother used to say, you're all holding 1 handkerchief. So what's up with this 1 handkerchief that you're all holding? So I have 1 son. My sister has 1 son, and the one behind me has 1 daughter. So a total of what? 11 plus 5, 16 grandchildren. Sadly, both parents have outlived and have passed on and did not get to spend a lot of time with their grandchildren. But I believe that their legacy continues to live in us and also in the subsequent generations. So that is my family. We call ourselves St. George's folks, St. George's siblings. We are all great achievers, and we all continue to live and walk in the journey and in the footsteps of the parents who raised us, taught us hard work, taught us modesty.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What a background. Beautiful. What a journey. What a legacy. And I think that's the legacy you are all promoting in your different lives, in your endeavor. And that's the core foundation of who you all are. Having to see your parents dedicate everything they have to make you the best that you can be. And you see you're transferring it to your children. And so it's a generational tradition and vision to, make sure that as parents, we leave a legacy that can outlive us when we're here and after we've gone. Listening to your story just brings smile and, recognition, also coming from a very large family, a family of 18, 10 girls, 8 boys. I'm the 7th girl, and the 10th child of my father. We're all over the world, highly educated. We're also doing very well in their different sphere of life. And the call for us is seeing our parents who had so many kids and still were dedicated in making sure we all went to school. My father used to say to us, he owed us nothing than education. And education we must all have. And today I'm happy to say we are all educated in different fields: lawyers, engineers, professors, teachers. I've always loved to teach because my father was an exemplary teacher. He was one of those British trained MIT Fulbright scholars. You get what I mean?
I
You
know where you're going, those ones.
was a mathematician and a physicist. He was one of the
Wow.
first pioneers in Nigeria that started this science technology. So when you line up the pedigrees of where you're coming from, it tells a lot of story about who you are and where you're going, and the drive that pushes you to do what we are all doing. So honestly, love your family background. I pray that God will continue to use each and every one of you to impact your communities, your family, because charity begins at home, and at the end of the day, the hard work of your parents will be recognized. Thank you so much. And this is the most important part of any human being, Every other thing we add to our family background is a bonus. Because if
True.
you're not well grounded in a family, and if you don't have all the love and all the support of a family, no matter how educated, no matter how exposed, there will be that character flaw that does not allow you to really understand, what hard work is all about. So with this now, we'll be moving on. If you would just share with us your educational background and your experience with going to school, where you went to school, and the impact of schooling on you. And then before we transit into your career journey.
Thank you very much, Princess. Thank you. I think this is very refreshing, very heartwarming. I can understand now how we're able to flow because there's a lot of similarities. Growing up with disciplinarians, I mean, those days you wanted to die, but I'm sure now you're
Oh,
wondering, this is the best thing that happened to me.
yeah.
Those parents were tough, but they had tough love and they made sure that we had the grounding and the foundation that we needed. My mom would always tell me, that is why you're able to travel the world and your eyes are not paining you because you got this from day one. So interestingly, I started primary school in 1969, and very interesting, the headmistress of my school also happened to be the headmistress when my mother was going to school.
Wow.
So it shows you how interesting this is because my mother went to a Catholic school. And by the time I was going to primary school, one of her young teachers, and Mrs. Ando, I think when she taught my mother, she must have been maybe 20 years. But by the time she became my headmistress, she must have been like 56 or, 48. She was a little older. So because my mother did so well in school, I was always in trouble. George Nance's daughter, I expect more from you. Your mother was very bright. Your mother worked very hard. Your mother did not sleep in class. I was waiting for that primary school to end so I could have my peace. I was never Yvonne. I was always George Nance's daughter.
Oh,
And
dear.
that reputation helped me because it forced me to excel. And of course, on the other side, when you come home, my mother will tell you, the people whose children came first, you think they did not pay school fees. They have also paid school fees. So you can't come home when you say I was 7 or I was 10 in class, You're either first, second, or third. Otherwise, a lot of grounding will happen. And and we all went to the same school. So four of us girls were in the school at the same time. So when I was in class 1, my older sister was in class 5. When I was in class 4, my little sister was in class 2. So all of us, were there like a set of suspense in the primary school, forcing us to not compete, but to push ourselves, to excel, to keep the family name and the reputation. So I went to University Primary School, a very good school, and a lot of wonderful classmates up to now. Then I finished primary school, and I'm sure you have the same school in Jos. So I went to St. Louis Secondary School.
Yes.
And I think there's a St. Louis Secondary School in Jos. So I always find an affinity to that. And you understand how the Catholic nuns run their schools. So I went to a Catholic boarding school. And lo and behold, again, Mother Joannes and Sister Marie Rose, who were the principals of the school, were also, Mother Joannes was a principal when my mother was in school as well.
Wow.
This time she didn't say George Nansa. She used to call me Yvonne Prempeh. Yvonne Prempeh. She couldn't pronounce my name. I was always in trouble. I was a naughty girl when I was in school.
I can see that.
I have always, because I wasn't rebellious, but I didn't like people forcing me to do things that I don't want to do. So in a way, it was a little rebellious, And unfortunately for me, when I was in Form 1, my sister was in Form 4, and she was very quiet. And here I was a sister to Claudia Prempeh, this quiet, saintly looking sister who was always pleading for me because I was in one trouble or the other. You know, if I haven't lost library books, I'm late to class, or, you know, I'm running late for dinner, or I'm running late for lunch. And Mother Joannis will always say, Yvonne Prempeh, your mother was very, very diligent. My only saving grace was I was a hard worker and I used to like learning. And by God's grace, I was a little smart in school. So it was easy to sail through because when the exams come, even though I'm sleeping in class or I'm probably missing prep, I'll still do very well. And those are the memories that have remained with me and my classmates. We are still on the school platform. And when we just talk about all the funny things that we used to do, you know. And I think the funniest story of it all is I always wanted to be a nun. And there were four of us, myself, Eric Osei, Unisu, Usu, and Barbara Bebrese. We have remained friends up to date. We all wanted to be nuns, but were denied. Our application was refused.
They have watched you and they
They said,
decided.
no, these ones, they cannot be nuns, you know. But we're still, but even though we worked in the convent and we worked in chapel, we were not allowed to be nuns. And that was secondary school, St. Louis. And to this day, when even we meet as old Slopsons, we're very proud of the training that we received. We're very proud of the discipline. I mean, by the time you've gone to church and mass every day at 5 a.m. for the whole 3 months, you know, I have a friend who said, Yvonne, I went to church so much in my secondary school, I've stopped going to church, you know, because the mass was just too much. But I believe that it has shaped us into who we are. It gave us a solid religious foundation at a very early age. It enabled us to draw close to God and to recognize that our source of being and our source of purpose is in God. And I took the early spiritual years very seriously. I was also part of the Scripture Union. I'm sure you had it in Nigeria, the SU people that people used to laugh at. And I believe that somehow that was an investment that I would draw on as life challenges showed up, you know, to be able to go back to those years and remember the prayers and remember the solid foundation in God. So I'm I actually remember those years with a lot of fondness because sometimes I feel that God came close to us to prepare us for things that we need as adults. And sometimes if we haven't had that foundation so early, it becomes difficult when the storms show up as an adult. So St. Louis was an amazing foundation, and it has remained a very vital part of my life and my education. So fast forward, finished St. Louis Secondary School, then went into the university in 1982. I went to the University of Ghana and Legon. We say that is the best university in Ghana, but there are like 4 or 5 other universities. We're always fighting with the other universities. And 1982 to 1986, I had always wanted to study French and economics. But you know, in Ghana, once you finish the exams, your subjects are literally chosen for you. So I ended up doing social sciences for my first degree. And one of the main reasons I wanted to do French was really to be able to travel. But over the years, the Lord has opened so many doors for me to travel, even without a French degree. And it's something that I'm always very thankful for. I always wanted to do economics because I had a family member who always challenged us that economics was the most important subject. And he also went to Cambridge University and would always say, when I was in Cambridge, I was very determined to go to Cambridge and also do economics. So this overdriven young girl who has a degree in psychology and sociology decided that masters would have to be in Cambridge and would have to be in economics. And the 4 years university, 3 years in the university was interesting. Well, it's 4 because one of those years the universities were closed because of revolutionary things and changes in government. So we stayed at home for a year. And in those 4 years, I discovered a streak, a political streak in my nature, because I competed in all the school leadership campaigns, and I ended up becoming the treasurer for my Students' Representative Council. So I was an SRC treasurer and worked very closely with the National Union of Ghana Students, and a few of my colleagues remember those political days and constantly remind me, Yvonne, you need to get back to that was your initial calling. You're always a politician. Wonderful. So University of Ghana was amazing.
I may come in here. You're so confident, well-spoken, well-versed, very convincing. So if you go into politics, I'm sure you'll be able to, reach a lot of the women and all the people. And I'm sure you also have a good mandate for your people. The best place to start is from the local government. So you need to start investing in the local government.
I know, right? Yes. No, I believe that because recently we had some trips and one of the government officials said to me, Auntie Yvonne, you seem to be catching on with the communities and they've never met you. Have you ever thought of being a politician? And I said, it's in my blood. My father was a politician. He was imprisoned by the CPP government under Kwame Nkrumah. He was in detention for a long time. So I think somewhere in the genetic makeup, there's a little DNA that is politician. I'm sure that in due time, I'll be able to leverage all these strengths that you have spoken to bring that into actuality. So of course, once I graduated, I completed with a first class upper, and by Ghana's requirements, I had to do service for 2 years. And so I worked with the University of Ghana. That was my first job as a teaching assistant. And for 2 years, I worked in the psychology department, specializing in clinical psychology and human psychology and child psychology. In fact, my thesis was on child psychology. So I've always been very interested in vulnerable populations, especially children and also women. So that has been the schooling. And of course, Cambridge had to be part of the journey.
The mix.
So it has to be part of the mix. And I promised myself and I promised that family member. So in 1988, in June of 1988, I got a scholarship to go to Cambridge University. And for 2 years, I pursued a postgraduate diploma in development studies and also a master's in economics and politics of development. I think those 2 years were
determination. That's what is determination. And
I've never done economics. Can you imagine?
Yes, and the challenge. You see, that's why sometimes it's good for people to challenge what we can do. It pushes us. Sometimes it may break us, or sometimes it may just be that little push we need to go and achieve, And I think in your own case, it made you to achieve and,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really think, and so I encourage young people who come crying, that boss is terrifying me. I said, that boss is a gift to you because he's forcing you to do harder than all the others. They'll say, oh, he brings back my work, but he doesn't question the others. I said, he's seen potential. And he knows you're slacking. So thank God for all the people who push you because they make you a better version of yourself.
Honestly.
I mean, my econometrics professors, my Indian econometrics professor would say at 3 p.m., think, Yvonne Prempeh, think, because maths is not my strength. And here I was doing econometrics with people who had degrees in mathematics. Can you imagine? And sometimes I'll tell her that, oh, the time was not enough. She said, I can give you until tomorrow. You can sit here by yourself and use all the time that you need. And interesting, Sudarshan Kanagaraja, he's now a big bad guy at the World Bank, always remained Sudarshan Kanagaraja. He's now Dr. Kanagaraja. But he was one of my biggest sources of inspiration. He did not give up with that econometrics. He said, I just want you to pass. And by God's grace, I passed and I was able to get my degree. And after Cambridge, the plan was to do a PhD. So I went to Dalhousie University in Canada, but in Dalhousie, I was required because of North American requirements to do another master's. So I did a master's in economics and politics of development and development economics to be precise. And I did that for 2 years. And in the third year, I got a fellowship to go to Indonesia. So that disrupted the PhD plans because after that, I got a job with the university for another year. I think I just got tired and everybody's like, you've done 2 masters. What do you need a PhD for? But my mother also insists, if you are not going to do a PhD, then there's no point doing a master's. So I think at some point, the PhD needs to happen. And my son will ask me, Mommy, for what reason? But Canada was amazing. As I said, we've done everything. Why? What do you need a PhD for? Maybe just for the peace that would give my mother's soul as she rests, that I wanted this child of mine to have a PhD. So in Canada, I did a bit of work first with the Lester Pearson Institute of Economic Development. I worked under the supervision of Professor Kwapon of blessed memory, an amazing, astute development practitioner. Learned so much from him, and then taught a few courses. Here I knew nothing about mathematics. I knew very little about economics, but I was an assistant lecturer in the Faculty of Economics in the Housing University. And that's how God, and so many PhD guys had applied for the position. They're like, Yvonne, what did you do? Did you bribe these white people? I'm like, it's God. I don't even know how I got here. And very exciting time. It gave me an opportunity to travel to Indonesia to work for the Canadian International Development Association, CIDA. And in that period, I was able to learn Bahasa Indonesia. So I speak fluent Bahasa. I did my research in Bahasa, and I always look for opportunities where I can rehearse the Bahasa. You know, I'm always looking out for Indonesian friends, Indonesian missionaries, Indonesian anybody, you know. So that is how the education went, and completed the 2 masters, I believe, in 1993, 1994. Left Canada, went to New York, and the story of my second phase of my life began. You know, and arriving in the Big Apple as a young girl, I'm sure you can relate to it, and all the challenges and all the exposure and all the lights and the eyes open and everything that I've never done before, you know, I began.
All the excitement, all the fashion, the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing, beautiful. So at that time, I found a Ghanaian gentleman who had started an NGO for Africans who were looking for HIV services. Was called Staten Island HIV/AIDS Rescue. And that is how my public health career began. Because prior to that, I had only done economics and had done development work. But Mr. Opoku was his name, blessed memory, an amazing man with a vision and with a commitment to underserved populations. So I joined him as an assistant at the time. And I rose to the position of a project director for Staten Island Rescue in New York City. You know, and after that, we worked in all the 5 boroughs of New York State. And so in Staten Island, in the Bronx, the famous Bronx, and Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens, you know, really providing services.
At the heart of New York.
At the heart of New York, the Bronx, as we call it. So everything that you needed to know about HIV, the transmission, the different shades of lavender, it was there. And that is what spurred in me an interest to move into public health. Fantastic. And to work with people who are living with HIV to address their peculiar risk behaviors and to really prevent them from transmitting to their unborn children.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is up to New York. But of course, after that, a lot of travel to East Africa, pursuing the same career lives and pursuing the same passions, pursuing the same, you know, opportunities that would come my way to always help vulnerable populations and vulnerable families. And we can speak to that a little bit
later.
The next
what phase, a rich educational background. And I like the idea that you were educated in different parts of the world. You know, education is not just about going to school. Education is so wholesome that it comes with language, culture, people, you know, traditions, and, you know, that's what makes you global. When you are able to, you know, be able to identify different aspects of different people at different location of the world is so fantastic, you know. And that's something I think has also enriched my life, you know, having to meet different people in different continents and just getting to know that we're one, no matter any part of the world that you're in, no matter how educated you are, no matter anything about you, you have millions of other people that are just like you, doing exactly the same thing you're doing wherever you are. So that's quite exciting. I'm so happy to be able to get this information firsthand. So even though I've known you for 20 years, I think I'm getting to know you deeper and better.
But the objective is being met. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Thank
So
you.
now that we move to your career journey, and I'll just say a little bit about our relationship, how we met, and how your work ethics, and how when you walk into that British Council elegantly, most times you love your white starch linen, and you come to me and you remember, you said linen. There was a time you made some from Ghana for me. I don't know if you remember.
I remember. I really remember.
Your
Amazing.
ability to create a very conducive work environment with you, your accessibility, your openness, and just your presence when you walk into that office. At least we know that Dr. Yvonne is in the house, and I loved your courage, and I loved that you knew what you wanted and demanded for what you think was necessary for you to be successful in your job. So I really love that, and I think I learned quite a bit from you, and so I can imagine what your experiences would have been in other offices and how you have impacted a lot of people through your work. So if you would just tell us how you've journeyed from, I think British Council, we diving into the middle of your career journey, where you can take it from there.
Fantastic. I'm smiling because the reflections you're providing would be the reflections that all my other colleagues would provide. My boss would know if I was late because he said, I haven't smelled Yvonne's perfume. She hasn't come to work. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I used to wonder, was I spending more time just being a fashionista or actually spending a lot of time getting the work done? But I think that it's a nice, healthy balance. Yeah. So we can fast forward from Nigeria. Nigeria was an amazing, amazing, amazing part of my journey. I think the friendships I made in Nigeria have remained. I still talk to Sally, Ramatu is there, Henry Adigun, Nkechi, Catherine Chatham, John Alade. I think that everybody needs the West African experience in their career. And I had never worked in Ghana, apart from my teaching assistant position. So when I talk about my adult, mature experience with my career, the locus is my experience in Nigeria and my experience with working with British Council and working on the youth project. I think for two reasons. Nigeria presented for me an opportunity to experience a federal government in real life. Having the federal government and operating at different levels, it always shows you the importance of governance and how individual approaches to governance can affect well-being and wellness. I think that was the first takeaway for me. I think the second one, which I loved, was to be able to observe the blend between the Muslim Nigeria and the Christian Nigeria, and the northern states and the southern states. And thanks to the work that I did, I was able to travel to all the 36 states.
Fantastic.
Because the project was implemented across it. You may recall that we had advisors literally in all the states that we were working.
Different regions of Nigeria.
Exactly. and that Nigerian experience, you know what I'm saying? That Nigerian experience has remained with me. I mean, Mrs. Oyinloye in the Federal Ministry of Education, Mrs. Ogunshino, Mrs. Sophia, they have remained women who were role models to me because I was quite young and they were very senior. And they treated me as a young child, but they also treated me as someone they were grooming. So Nigeria was a very important turning point in my career. And it sharpened my interest in HIV/AIDS, having to be able to manage working with the World Bank, working with ActionAid, and working with all the sub-partners that were involved in the project. So after Nigeria, I came to Ghana. Sadly, I came in June 2007. because my mother was unwell with
Yeah.
cancer. And unfortunately, in October 2007, she passed on. But right after that, I got an opportunity to go back to the States to work with World Vision in Washington, D.C., very few minutes from the Union Station. So I have very fond memories of DC and also of Maryland, because I lived in Silver Spring, Maryland in that period and commuted to DC on a daily basis in the cold. My mother had just died, so I'll go crying and I'll come home crying.
Yeah.
Until my boss said to me one day, you know, I have to keep giving you flowers. So you're going to decide whether you want to stay or you want to go with your mother. But it was a powerful experience, bringing in the North American culture, the North American work ethic. So everybody's a product of their experiences.
Yes.
So within that experience, there's a bit of my Nigerian experience. There's a lot of my East African experience. There's also my North American culture from the US side and also from the Canadian side. And then, of course, I threw in my West African experience as well as the Asian. So when you bring in the Indonesian experience, which allowed me to travel to Hong Kong, to Singapore, to lots of other Southeast Asian countries in that location. But I think the North American experience was amazing because that is where you're in a capitalist system. You either deliver or you're out. So very, very high standards. No one is waiting for your grief. No one is waiting for your misery. You know, no one is waiting for you to snap out of your mother's death. You have work to do.
Yeah.
And my most interesting experience was 2 days before my mother was buried, we had an audit report that we had to defend. My boss just carried me to the Department of Labor. And I'm saying, hello, do you know my mother has just died, you know, and the funeral is in 2 days. She said, Yvonne, you have to defend this audit. And the people who were in the room, they looked like mannequins. Sincerely, their faces couldn't even move. 7 of them. I had to face this Sanhedrin. And that was one of the defining moments of my career. My boss said, you nailed it. Now I see that you're ready to work in America. You know, powerful experience. But my heart was still in Africa. So when a position became vacant in Uganda, they asked me, I wasn't managing the code too well. So they said, Yvonne, there's a position in Uganda.
You can say that again.
I know that code, really. And you know, running after the buses, missing the train, falling down. I said, this one.
You never get used to the code.
I didn't get used to it. Actually, I was miserable, but I loved the work that I was doing. But the cold, you know, having to lay, you know how I like to dress, but you wear your beautiful dress, then you have to wear all these coats. I'm like, this is not working for me. And one of my senior colleagues, who was the chief of party for a project that was implemented in 4 countries, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Dr. Benigai, whom I love dearly up to now. And Dr. Aben moved on and she said, Yvonne, why don't you take over this position? So I went to Uganda for a year, went in Kampala, and went for World Vision. And as I always joke, he had moved on to another position, but after a year, he got tired of the position. He moved on again. He said, Yvonne, do you want to take this other one? I said, yes. So I moved on to become the chief of party for a USAID funded project, the SPEAR project. So I did that for 2 years in Kampala up to 2012. And after 2012, I was still in the region. I love East Africa. And part of me always feels like I'm East African. I enjoyed working. I enjoyed the work ethic, you know, and their relationship building and their focus on results. So even though I had opportunities to come back to Ghana, there was a job that was open in Tanzania with the International Rescue Committee, looking at children engaged in child labor. So I moved to Tanzania in 2012, and I stayed in Tanzania until 2017. So I worked in Tanzania, I worked for the IRC. Then with my passion for children, I moved on to Save the Children and did a bit of...
I think I remember that time.
I'm sure you remember that phase, that phase of my life. Yes, in Save the Children. Exactly. And my boss at the time was actually Ghanaian, Dr. Supo, another amazing feather in my cap, an amazing person who helped to rewrite my journey and contributed a lot to my success in Tanzania. So did Save the Children until 2017, whilst at the same time educating my son in Canada, you know, making the trips. And I always believe that maybe those expatriate positions was to help me take my son through school. Because by the time he finished, he was about to finish in 2017, I was ready to come back to Ghana. And I came as a fluke. I had just come to see what's going on. I've done a lot of years in East Africa, and I came back to Ghana and I liked it. And from 2017, I never went back to East Africa. And I was sitting in a cyber cafe one evening, just scrolling for consultancy jobs. And I saw this position. They were looking for a consultant to do a landscape analysis. I looked at it and I'm like, this is the thing I would have done when I was a project assistant or a research assistant. But the Lord said, apply for it. And I applied. And that was the landscape consultant with Mothers to Mothers. So when I finished the consultancy, they said, well, we're looking for a country director.
Oh, wow.
And since you've been involved in the, exactly, that's how it happened. I did the consultancy work. This is, imagine after coming home after 34 years.
I also remembered when you told me about it.
I think I did.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because that period, you even invited me to come to Korea, remember?
Yeah.
When you first came. I think that's another story. And I think our audience needs to hear that there's always a desert and a fallow period. That was a fallow period and a desert period in my whole career in life. When I arrived in Ghana 2017 December until 2018, I believe 2017 until 2019 May, when I started this consultancy. And when they say fallow land, that was a fallow period. And I think everybody needs a fallow period, because that's when you actually sit back, you regroup, and you think, and you launch your next.
Like I was saying to you, even though you were in your fallow period, it was good that you surrounded yourself with people who understood and never allowed you to fallow for too long. Because being in the fallow ground can be very dangerous, you understand? So, but the good thing was that you had your network around you that would once in a while, make suggestions to you, Yvonne, come, let's do this. And that kept prompting your mind that, okay, I can't be fallow for too long,
But what you have said is very, very dynamic and very on point. And for young people who are listening, you need to surround yourself with people who encourage you positively and who tell you honestly also. That I know why you're smiling. We'll also tell you, come on, girl, snap out of this. But at the same time, these are some of the positive things you can do. And I thank God for people like you in that period. And that will be another interview. But you were such an important element in that fallow period. And now that you speak about it, I'm just pinching myself and telling me, if I had not met these amazing women during that time, and if I had not surrounded myself with a positive network, and I think that is what I'm taking away this afternoon. Without that positive network, I would have followed for a long time. Heaven knows whether I'll still be following at this time. But the words kept coming back. Yvonne, you can do more. Yvonne, you can do good. Yvonne, this is a short period. Yvonne, this period will change. And everybody's going to have that period in their career.
Definitely.
And it makes you appreciate it when the success comes. Because you've been there, done that, So beautiful, beautiful time. And thank you, Princess, for being one of those women on that journey. One of those Moses.
I'm happy that you didn't think I was too harsh.
You need, your best friends are the ones who will tell you, you know what, you're not good, girl. You can do better than this. And everybody needs that friend.
Yeah.
That is going to tell them exactly as it is and not pamper them the sweet words. Of course, in the background, they are praying for her. And in the background, they are looking for opportunities for her. In the background, they are trying to reinforce the good things that she's doing and assuring her, and reinforcing her with positive messages. So and that's exactly what you did. So I think today on your birthday, I want to say thank you.
Thank God.
You have not left my side. You've called me again, and I'm very grateful. Very, very grateful. So amazing journey. Fast forward to Mothers, became the country director. And I've been the country director since 2019 for the last 5 years in Ghana.
Thank you. I was just going to say that It's one thing to have people tell you the truth. It's another thing to bring it on board. It's another thing to run with it. And I've seen you on these 3 stages where you were followed and then you were advised. I thought you would never talk to me again.
Isn't that funny? I know, right?
But then, and that's the most important thing about being in line with God's, what God is telling you about somebody. And that day when I spoke to you, I spoke like somebody who was,
a sister.
Yeah, a sister. And not out of sisterhood even. It was a dear, very dire message that was in my heart, And I just had to say to you the way it was. And you listened, even though you were staring at me. I didn't even
At
know
the
if
time,
you,
like I was like, what's wrong with her,
But here we are.
Oh, to the glory of God.
6 years down the line, isn't it?
Yes.
Here we are, and you're a country director.
Amazing.
Because if you hadn't done that, you would have faded away.
I would have slipped away. I don't even know whether I'd still be alive. Because these things, these issues, they can lead to another thing, and before you know, you're actually passing away.
Yeah. And if you look at that period, that was the period we came down with a lot of health issues, if you remember.
Yes.
And it was a huge struggle from one to the other. But by the time those ill health came, your mind had already healed. You were already in the process of healing. And so you were able to go through that difficult period.
Amazing.
Honestly, God has been so gracious. When I look at you, and when we talk, people don't really know the difference in.
No, they don't.
And that's another aspect of you that is so endearing, that you are so accessible, you're so down to earth, you're so joyful to be with, and you love life.
Thank you. And thank you. And people tell me, Auntie Yvonne, you're 60, when are you going to change? I ask them, change for what? I love life. And I tell them, by the time God calls me, I'll say, Lord, I've done everything that you wanted me to do and what I also wanted to do. I think that it becomes a coping mechanism as well. Because mental health can take you to a place where if you don't have a zest for life and you don't have a joy for life, it can drown you. And so I think the craziness helped me. And I also had some crazy people in my network, who were just funning me every now and again. They hit me small, they encourage me small, and I bless God for that network.
I didn't give you a breathing space. I'm sure you would have said, what is, Princess, this? But here we are.
Here we are. So we thank God for sisters. Thank God for dear ones who you can. A lot of people in the US have not been that lucky.
No.
And you know what has happened to them.
Yeah.
So I thank God for people like you.
God has been faithful.
Yes.
When we look back from where we're coming from, and all the different experiences, the ups and the downs, and the valleys and the mountains, it's just has molded us to what we are today, and the values that we are promoting. It didn't just come from nowhere.
Yes.
It's a precedent that is being built over years. And once something is built over years, it cannot be easily copied or imitated or destroyed, So, and that is why hard work pays, Once you're hardworking, you're diligent like you've always been, and the passion you put into every program or project that comes to you tells the story, Yvonne. It tells the story. The successes of all the projects you've been involved in tells a huge story about your personality, your humanity, your love for God, and the excellence in which you seek to perfect, So this takes us to our next segment, where you'll be talking about your impact to lives, and then your future aspirations.
Oh, thank you so, so much. And thank you, Princess. You know, I think that this interview is very timely. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on the goodness of God and the mercies, and also to be thankful for the people that He has brought to us. And when I always talk about impact, I start with myself. And I think it flows very nicely into the discussion that we started. I mean, look at me. I tell people when they say God is good, I don't say all the time. I say when you say God is good, I say look at me. Because beyond even all those issues and the health issues, there were so many other things going on that people could not even see and have not shared. Issues with your child, with school's education, some of the struggles, you know, bit of the financial issues here and there. And so for me, I think the biggest work God has done has been on myself. I think the person I've impacted the most has been me. And like what you have said, I've been able to go through with this impact because I have listening skills. And I don't pretend to know it all. And that openness and willingness, I have such a continuous learning spirit that I keep learning. I want to learn all the time. And even if it's something that somebody's wearing, the way they're speaking, the thing, I want to learn immediately. And I think it's a humility aspect of my life and my character, and that has helped me. So I think the biggest person who has benefited from Yvonne's impact is Yvonne. And allowing herself to grow through the years. Nobody believes when I tell them my son was born at 5 months and 2 weeks, at just 22 weeks gestation. No one will believe that he was in the incubator for 14 weeks. No one will believe when I share these stories, they stare at me like they're looking at a ghost. They're like, Auntie Yvonne, and you're always so happy. How is this possible? My son did not speak until he was 4. He did not even say mama or dada, you know. And he was not potty trained until he was 6. But I always turn those challenges into humor. And, you know, I always tell people when things happen, you have one choice, either to cry or to laugh. And I choose to laugh.
Let me come here, like you usually say, we don't carry our bodies on our face. Like you
we
said,
don't wear it on our faces.
We dress up and we show up, you know.
Exactly. And everybody thinks that it's all rosy.
It's all well settled. No, sometimes we are some raging storm going on in our lives, and we just dress up, show up with a smile, and somehow God takes control of those raging storm. But one thing I just like about you, you dress up and you show up.
And show up. I dress up and show up. Even if I'm dying, I dress up and show up.
Like this interview.
Exactly. You know, can you imagine? Because you don't want to give the devil the opportunity to be happy and to glorify in that weakness. So I have been a product of my own impact, but I think more importantly, the people that I've met over the years, everybody remembers how something Yvonne said to them helped them at one time or the other. How they were somewhere at the bottom, and Yvonne reminded them. And I tell the young people, especially young women. Even yesterday, I was talking to one young girl. She said, "Oh, I'm with the men, and they're stifling me. They're trying to sit." I said, "There's no space at that table. Create the space yourself."
Yes.
Create that space at the table with your results. Create that space at the table with your innovation. Create that space. Let them look for you. When they sit in that meeting, they have to call you because you have the answer, and you have the plan, and you have the new creativity you are bringing on board. And she was like, "Wow, Auntie, you're right." Because my boss called me the other day. She said, "Can you come and tell me this thing you were discussing?" I said, "Create a table, create a space at the table for yourself." And so for me, over the years, I believe I've been a champion of women. I've been a champion of young girls. They call me Mama 10 in Ghana because every advice I give you has to be 10. And every time you have to give me has to be 10. Every thing you give me has to be 10. If you give me 5, I say keep going until you get to 10. You know. So Mama 10 is my name in Ghana. And I work with 55 young women, you know, from interesting backgrounds, many of them who are on treatment. And I look at the transformation in their lives. I believe that is one of the, one of the most beautiful things I'm proudest of. And I believe that unless you are transforming lives and impacting lives, then you still have a lot of work to do. Because when people encounter you, they shouldn't leave the same.
Yeah.
And I sit back after 5 years and I watch my young girls and I tell them, you know what, I'm ready to go. You guys are all super directors. You are managers by yourself. In fact, these days they challenge me. When I make a presentation, they tell me, Mommy, that one is wrong. That one has to be like this. I'm like, hey, once you're becoming more than the master, it means I've done my work well. Because the current general is always looking for the next general. A good general is always looking for their replacement. So I'm very happy that all my 55 girls at the side, they all become generals in public health. Very exciting.
You get to know a good leader by their followers.
Exactly.
And you tend to become a leader when you have followers. But when you don't have followers, how can you say you are a leader? And so the what is it called? The measurement of leadership is to see how many people, how many lives have you changed, or are you changing, or have you shifted? And you are phenomenal, in leadership, and I like the areas you've chosen, to impact lives, vulnerable peoples, people who chances of making it in life is so slim, or people who have been tabooed, people who have been looked down on, and you go to them and you bring rays of hope to them. That's amazing, Yvonne. That's amazing.
And that's what God keeps us here.
It's an amazing project.
Thank you. Thank you. And the change is real time. I like the word you use, change, because there are some pieces of projects you can invest in, and for maybe 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, you're still looking for the change. But this change is daily. This change is immediate. This change is real time. Some people will tell you, I'd have killed myself if I hadn't met you. And it's very deep, and the change continues intergenerationally, because once a woman is doing well, her children will do well.
Yeah.
Even the husband will do well,
Happy wife, happy family.
happy wife, happy family. And actually
happy woman, happy society.
Happy woman, happy society. And our motto is healthy women, healthy families, healthy world.
Yeah.
So the impact is even global.
Yeah.
When the woman is happy, her family is happy, the husband is happy,
and you know that
happy.
Women are the engine of the economy of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when we have millions of women being happy and productive, you can imagine there will be no wars. Only that we'll be keeping malice. The economy will be.
You know what I'm saying? That's true. Yeah, but I like what you said. If millions of women are happy, then globally we will all be happy. Yeah. I think that's powerful. Yeah, so that has been my impact. I think at the individual level, at the beneficiary level, but at the national level, I've also made some strides, in lobbying and advocacy and pushing policies, social protection to ensure that people just live well and everybody's happy. Yeah, when they're happy, I'm happy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So now, just leave us with a few words of your inspiration.
Yeah.
And a word of wisdom for all our audience that will be watching this interview.
Wow. A number of things. And people tell me, Auntie Yvonne, there are a number of things you haven't done yet, so you should do them. And one of the interesting things is leading a church. And I tell them, look, I'm a good Christian. I don't need to be pastor at a church. They said, no, you need to pastor a church just for women.
Please leave the church to the men of God. Let's just
what I'm saying? I tell them I have to be called also, I tell them I need to be called. So if God is telling you, then I'm waiting for God to confirm. But I think at a more micro level, for the rest of my life, as I've always done, I want to continue serving God.
Amen.
In holiness, in truth, and in diligence, and in a way that honors Him.
Amen.
And I want to get even more closer than I have been. I want a closer walk, as a songwriter said, just a closer walk with God. And he has been kind to me. I've died many times, but the Lord has preserved me.
Hallelujah.
I tell you the illnesses that I've had to deal with. People have gotten to that point, but they have not survived. So God's mercies have been amazing, have been abundant in my life, and I want to continue serving him. So my aspiration is really to be a bigger, better, stronger Christian and to continue working in the vineyard for the Lord. And if in the process he calls me to be a woman of God, to pastor a church, why not? I'll be calling Lady Pastor Princess Nwakego to come and help me.
I'll be your assistant pastor.
You know what? Between the two of us, nobody will hear the word because the gilly will be so big in the front. Nobody will see the screen with the songs. That's what they tell me. They say,
You.
Auntie, your gilly will be too big. You can't read the screen. So between the two of us, we would make sure that we turn a lot of heads, but also bring change.
When
I think
I and my husband we were younger and we were attending one of the churches in Lagos, and it seemed as if the call for him to serve the Lord was coming his way. I said to him, "How come you know that I'm not Mama Yad? I cannot be a pastor's wife."
That's why.
But
so please don't bring this my way.
But looking back now, I may not have been Mama Yad or him a priest, but God has used us in his vineyard in numerous ways that even, is more impactful than I can ever imagine. So, sometimes you don't really have to become that thing. You don't really have to become a pastor, really need to be a pastor's wife to have that immense impact in the house of the Lord. So yeah, I'm wishing you all the best. If you open a church, you have a pastor here.
I'm bringing
to cover that.
They will make sure that everything is rolled out properly. Then, we will invite you, but definitely. And we'll be movers. I'm sure that page will attract a lot of very young women who are coming to learn.
And I think from feeding them spiritually, we also become feeding them.
You know what I'm saying?
Otherwise.
Change their dressing and everything.
It's going to be a holistic church that and bring succor.
You have a name already. Holistic Church for Women. Where you come in.
That's the essence of church.
Yes.
The essence of church is for fellowship, for networking, for lifting up one another, for ensuring that humanity is presented in our character, in our lifestyle, in all the things that we do. Because that is the embodiment of Christ.
It is.
So is a good aspiration. And so on our side, on behalf of the Expert Professional and Business Women's Network International, as a founder, I, Princess Nwakego Ibrahim-Pam, wishes to say thank you. Thank you for honoring us. Thank you for honoring me on my birthday. Thank you for always making yourself available to partner with us. Thank you for the skills and knowledge and training you have offered on our platform. I want to assure you that lots of the women, the feedback I've gotten is fantastic, it's marvelous. And we do not take your time for granted. We know you had so many other things to do today, but you've chosen to come and sit with me and share your life story with us. And we also will be sharing your life story with many, many other women around the world. And may God continue to bless you in your endeavor and for all the impact you're going to make, that it will come to fruition. It will impact lives and society to the glory of your God and to all who come in contact with you. So Dr. Yvonne Prempeh-Ferguson, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful hour chatting, laughing, getting to know you deeper and better. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Princess. Thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me. And like I said at the beginning, you're one person who shares your space and you open doors for women to come in. And that is one strength that I always watch you and I learn from. So thank you very much for hosting me. This has been a wonderful 1 hour. When the
Yeah.
political doors open at local governments, I'll call you as well. And I'm sure between the two of us,
I'll be there. Standing next.
definitely to hold my hand as usual. But thank you very much. And as you celebrate this birthday, may the Lord give you more strength. May the Lord
Amen.
give you more wisdom. May
Amen.
the Lord replenish your stock, replenish every virtue that you have lost in doing this amazing work. And may the Lord continue to expand your territory.
Amen.
Thank you very much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.